It's Thursday. It's 6 o'clock. It's probably my favorite time of the entire week. I love this show. It is, of course, the ABC of CBD with the hunk of hemp, the count of cannabinoids, the one, the only, Mr. Ollie Mammon. Ollie, how are you? I thought we'd do it like a three-way thing today. I thought we'd just do the little bit of
change it up a little bit.
Yeah, we're just gonna ramp it up a little bit. Why not?
Of course, there's nothing worse than being ordinary, and after doing something the standard way for 47 weeks, why not chop and change it?
So this is amazingly, and I'm so thrilled. This is week 40? This is week 47.
46.
Bravo, and it's down to you, Ollie Mammon. You know what? I think we should have a word from our sponsor. How about you?
I'm sure you've heard before that good quality CBD needs to be really, really expensive. This is the new view of CBD, a product created by users for users, a product at an affordable price, available everywhere at any time at the simple click of a button. Just CBD and MCT oil. No additives, no preservatives, and no flavor enhancers. It's a simple subscription-based service. The cleanest possible CBD delivered to your door for the lowest possible price. Your product, your rights for the lowest possible price.
Yeah.
The magic of technology. It's fantastic. Very patiently, I can see a third member here of Rush. Ollie, over to you, and you please do all the lovely introductions.
So we're actually amazingly joined by Mr. Dominic Day today. I don't know if you know Dominic, but Dominic is the founder of 45 CBD. He's an ex-professional rugby player, and he is a cannabis advocate, CBD advocate, to say the least. The title of today's show is Athlete Sports Recovery and Cannabinoid Advocacy. So over recent years, as the momentum of the cannabis market continues to grow and continues to push, we've seen individuals from the most unlikely industries take an active role in advocacy, education, and the promotion of cannabinoids. Some of the most active voices in the cannabinoids market in the UK come from athletes. One of them being our guest today, Mr. Dominic Day. Dominic has created a prolific brand in 45 CBD and has been an important voice in the CBD industry for a few years now. His targeted approach of specifically designed cannabinoid products for sports recovery and his focus on education to promote the use of cannabinoids in competitive sport are a much needed, much valued contribution to this market and to this space. As I mentioned last week, the next block of episodes, which we're going to do on the ABC of CBD, will focus on other educators in this market and in this space, and how they help consumers discover the benefits of CBD and other cannabinoids, and how they help consumers navigate through the maze of our very overcomplicated CBD market. Last week, we were joined by Mary Biles, author of the CBD book, talking about her journey, her view, and her experiences in the market. Dominic has come from a very different angle, but his voice is of great importance. I actually mentioned to a friend of mine that I've got Dominic coming on the show, and his exact words were, he's one of the UK's highest level athletes discussing CBD, if this is going to be your most important show. And I was like, why do you say that? He goes, because fact of the matter is you've got an athlete, someone who's basically taken care of his body like a temple his entire life. He's an athlete who plays rugby, which means that he's literally had the shit kicked out of him for 30 fucking years, okay? And this dude is sitting there promoting cannabinoids. Why would he be doing that unless it's for a reason? It's going to be such an important voice to listen to. You've got someone who's been through the wars, who's probably been in a doctor's chair more than anyone else we know, because rugby boys, they get hurt. That's what happens.
Tough.
And if he's promoting cannabinoids as recovery, and if he's, been so brave to stick his face on a CBD brand way before anyone else was doing it, I mean, the content's going to be incredible, and it's such an important voice to hear. So, I've heard from several people basically that. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today, Mr. Day. Thank you for joining us today, missed today. It's quite nice actually. I've been watching.
Don't rinse it, Ollie. Ollie, don't rinse it.
Done. I've been watching you guys for the last 4 or 5 years. You see, I've got that. I'm done now. So I've been watching you guys for the last 4 or 5 years. You know, I remember the first time you guys. I remember seeing you guys launch a brand first, and I was just blown away. Now, you know, you weren't one of the first athletes to launch a CBD brand. You were one of the first people to launch a CBD brand. I mean, like, I remember 4 or 5 when there were only a handful of CBD companies out there. Now there's 2,000 different brands. You've got celebrities and athletes, you know, joining up with companies and slapping their faces on stuff. Dominic is actually an owner and a founder. He took the steps to make this happen. He's also actively promoted CBD and other cannabinoids across the league. And someone brought up to me that apparently England and Ireland, the Lions are now sponsored by CBD companies, right? They're sponsored by 4-5, or they're sponsored by another CBD company.
We're working on it at the minute. It's not out there yet, but that's a little sneak preview, I guess, Ollie.
If I've just dropped the bomb, I'd actually spoken. He didn't. I just heard it, and I was like, "It's incredible." So there's so much you guys are doing, but mainly I want to say that thank you so much for joining us. And sorry if I've just screwed up your deal.
No,
by the way, everybody, if you want a secret to just be on the front page of every newspaper, just tell Ollie, and with him, it'd been brilliant.
This is why I don't get national press newspapers. I ask you to write for them. This is the problem. I'm way too, what's the word? The liability of Ollie Mammon only belongs on
we love him. We love him. We love him. Well done, Dom. Fantastic.
It's incredible though, because it's not like now so many athletes are jumping on. I mean, I know a whole bunch of football players who are all jumping on the bandwagon. They all ride the wave the CBD market. Dominic got involved way before that, you know, like way before that, and it's actually quite, you know, I want to say I'm actually like super respectful of you, and I've got a lot of what's the word? I'm in awe of you in all honesty, because of the fact that you actually took the steps without anyone having to tell you to take it. It's almost you are one of the leaders of athletes going towards cannabinoids. You are one of the voices which pushes athletes towards cannabinoids, and you were the trendsetter. You know, you started it. You were like the first. You were the first real person to get involved in this industry. Before you got involved,
got to stop this introductions make me blush. Honestly.
Oh, good. That's it. I'm done now. You're blushing. So
I could be wrong. Dom. I'm going out on a limb here. I think Ollie's a little bit of a fan. I could be wrong.
Listen,
I think he admires you and he's impressed by you, and who the hell wouldn't be? But he keeps it close to his chest.
Don't let on. Don't let on.
Don't let on. Your fanboy secret is safe with us and all the listeners around the world to the ABC of CBD. Anyway, welcome, Don. Let me officially welcome you. Brave for coming on. Thank you for coming on. I know you're a very, very busy fella. And Ollie, by the way, your setting today is beautiful.
Exactly. I'm in the office. I've got the flowers and
It's
quite
really,
lovely.
really nice.
Got my little Taylor Mammon logo behind me.
Yeah, that is beyond. That is
the other way
cool.
you see it
That is
both
beyond
ways.
cool. And you, I don't know where you are, Dom, but that looks great as well.
So I'm actually I work between. So I do a lot of remote working at the minute, and I've got a 3-year-old, so I'm actually at my wife's nan's house in her home office, and behind me there's a model train set, and maybe I can show you after. But it's quite a sight to be seen.
I'll be honest, I love those. I know it. I'm sorry. I know I've blown any last tiny scintilla of cool that I ever had. Well, probably didn't, but a train set, yeah. Who doesn't like train sets?
All I'm saying is Gomez Adams plays with the train set, and Gomez Adams is like a living legend. So, I mean, just throwing it out there. Now, back onto CBD. Dominic,
please.
What was your first interaction with cannabinoids? What made you decide to start the brand 4-5 CBD as a rugby player, as a professional athlete, as someone who was basically always told to stay away from drugs and probably stay away from cannabis? What made you decide to hold up the white flag and start a CBD brand?
Yeah, well, look, first of all, thank you so much for the introduction. And it is, I guess, looking back over the last few years, and where the industry was when we started and where it is now is a completely different place. But I guess for myself and George, my co-founder, we're interested. I guess for maybe a couple of years before we got into CBD industry, just in kind of alternative methods. Well, I in particular was coming towards the end of my career, and like you mentioned, like rugby's a tough sport, right? And you get a lot of knocks, and I was always just kind of looking for that extra 1% that was going to help, aside from the sort of standard things that we were consistently doing. And in 2018, they took CBD as a cannabinoid off the banned substance list, which is great, and it kind of opened that up to athletes being able to use like these products. So we were both injured at the same time, myself and George, and we thought, listen, like, you know, we're laid off the pitch here for like 3 months. Let's do something. Let's look out there.
May I know, Dom, what happened, if you don't mind?
Yeah, well, George had an ankle operation. I had a knee operation, and it was one of a series of knee operations. It was like my third of like a sort of a similar operation I've had.
Gosh.
And it kind of ties in actually to why I was so sold on CBD, but I'll come to that. So we were just chatting away in the physio room, and saw that CBD had been taken off the banned substance list. So you know, we were both just kind of maybe a couple of days off the operating table and decided to try a CBD product. Used it. After a week, just saw such great sort of benefits from it, and like
within a week.
Yeah, within a week.
Dom?
Like we're always very careful about how we talk about this, simply because we're brand owners.
Yeah.
And kind of
you can't be making claims.
We don't want to make claims, but I guess when it's my
Understood.
story, and it is a true story, I am happy to talk about it. So for me, the thing I noticed in particular, and bearing in mind I'd had this same operation and the same kind of recovery period twice before, like the inflammation in my knee was greatly reduced to a level where it had never, like, my knee had not always been, but towards the end of my career had been playing up, and there's always some level of like inflammation in there. And you know, it was to a point where the physio was kind of like, I didn't tell him that I was using CBD because I kind of knew what the reaction would be. And he was kind of looking at me. He was like, well, this is great. Like, you know, like what we're doing differently
You're
here.
healing like an 18-year-old again. Like, oh my God, you've got 15 years younger. This is incredible.
Exactly. So,
you know what? I think everyone should get 3 operations, because after the 3rd operation, you just start to heal like that, don't you? That's the logic of it. Sorry.
Either that or you're trying something different, right? So, so I was kind of like, you know, the one thing that I was doing differently was kind of adding, and I'm always very careful to say this to people. I didn't just use like CBD; it was added into my normal regime, my normal recovery regime. It was kind of that 1% I added on top that I think kind of just pulled everything together, and for me, just saw really great results. And George, from his benefits, he was just sleeping like a log, so he was kind of sold on it as well. And like still today, and until regulations change within sport, I think there'll always be a stigma around it. You know, in terms of how clean and isolate can you get? Like, will there be traces of other cannabinoids in there? Because I think what a lot of people, and this is the worrying thing, especially when they're promoting to athletes, what a lot of people don't realize is that CBD is the only cannabinoid that's allowed in sport, right? Like, all the other cannabinoids, all the other hundreds of cannabinoids, like, they're banned. Although they're not tested for, like, they are banned. So you've got to be very careful that, like, the product you're getting is very good, very pure, and that you're testing it to as low a level as possible to ensure that it is as clean as possible.
The one thing you don't want to do is compromise the career of another athlete,
exactly.
or compromise your own career.
Exactly.
And yeah, fine.
And like you say, like, we're putting our faces to this brand, right? So if someone, like, we get drug tested like quite regularly, well, George still, because George is still playing. But and the funny thing is, when we launched 4-5, we got drug tested maybe 3 times more than we were before. But all came up clean, by the way.
Good to know.
We knew at the time that we weren't 100% comfortable with products that are on the market, and we also knew that there were, like, just from our research, talking to other rugby clubs, there were heaps of players, like, within rugby using CBD products. So we wanted players to kind of have that benefit whilst also being, like, comfortable, having the peace of mind to use products. So we went out there and just, like, sourced the best ingredients. We must have spoken to hundreds of suppliers, and we finally got comfortable with kind of the manufacturing processes, the suppliers, the testing processes, and we sort of put our balls on the line to some respect, I guess, and created a brand. And we went out there and launched, and the first year was kind of a real whirlwind, and really got some momentum. I think professional athletes getting into the cannabis industry is always going to turn heads. So I think that was
very brave,
good.
Man. It was very brave. Like, for me,
Very
I thought it was necessary. Like, in my mind, I was like, all right, they're doing what has to be done. But I mean, like, obviously, if I was to put myself in your perspective, I'd be like, oh shit, I really am brave, because it's going against everything you've ever been told. I mean, you're told you're not allowed to do any of this stuff. It's like your career's over if you do. It's like your blinders are on. So for you to kind of take your blinders off and to look at the bigger picture and to be like, you know what, I'm diving in. It's really brave, and it's exactly what needed to happen. It's interesting, though, that there hasn't been a wave of other athletes who have followed you. It's almost like they've left you to kind of, let's see if they get.
Let's see how old Dom
get. Okay.
Let's see how beaten up old Dom gets, and then when he takes a good old kicking, then we might come in or not. You're absolutely right. They all stand there with their arms folded, don't they?
I think we were very prepared for a lot of criticism, not just in the press, but from the governing bodies. But we were very careful to make, like, before we launched, as we were developing the brand, we were already having the conversations with the governing bodies to make sure that they were okay with it, because we didn't want to piss anyone off, essentially. So we worked alongside the governing bodies, alongside nutritionists. And I think everyone was comfortable mainly because they knew so many athletes were using the products. They were like, well, like, even though we're advising them not to, like, if they are going to use it, then why not use what hopefully is one of the safest products on the market from an athlete's perspective. So yeah, that's pretty much how it started. And there's a lot of exciting stuff in the pipeline still. I think we're just focusing really on growing whilst sticking to our core values, which I think is really important, not just in the industry as a whole, but particularly in the kind of sector that we're in.
I think it's quite lovely. I mean, I've seen so many athletes or athletes and celebrities literally slap their face onto the shittest products on the marketplace.
Oh, anything at all.
Yeah, but I mean, in the CBD market, I mean, there's so much flooding now. I mean, there are so many brands trying to compete for the space which is held by the brands who do things properly. And I think it's so nice that you guys have literally maintained your integrity. I love the fact that you guys haven't got on a whole nother wrap of other. It's not like you're constantly trying to build your following through other celebrities and other footballers. I like the fact that the other athletes who use your products generally don't talk about it. You really are like a true provider of a product which people use, talk about, but it's not like a false construction. Do you know what I mean? So often you get these people, there's so much support for a brand, but no one actually uses it. I love the fact that you guys have, great support. And to be honest with you, as someone who doesn't work with you, I've always respected you guys, and I've always given little thumbs up. Whenever I've seen you guys at expos or whatever, I've always given you guys a little thumbs up. I've always recommended your products to athletes and stuff like that, because I know that you guys work from integrity. It's so rare it drives me mental that it's rare, but it's so rare, and you should be super fucking proud of yourself, man, for actually
it's interesting you say this, Ollie.
being good to your end consumers. Sorry, Russ.
Absolutely. No, it's interesting that you say this, Ollie, because, you know, how many times have we seen quotes celebrity, either, in other words, somebody probably I've never heard of or so past their sell by date, who cares? And, you know, they're doing diet products and they go, look at me, I'm taking this product, I've lost so much weight. And they don't tell you they've gone into hospital and had a gastric band fitted. I mean, it should be illegal because it's conning the public.
It's like the Kim Kardashian thing, isn't it? Kim Kardashian.
We're not getting into any. We're not getting into.
No, but I mean, she kind of brings it upon herself. Anyway, she's had more plastic surgery than anyone on the planet, but she tells everyone that it's all done through like a balm or something. You know that's not a balm. You know, like a bum balm makes your bum that big, but it doesn't work that way. That's not the way the world works, and it's kind of.
I get that, but I mean, it is about integrity, and when you find a brand that really does stick to its original intent, it's a special thing. It is a special thing.
So, Dom, let me ask you a question. You were talking about how CBD was like the added 1%, the added 1% to make you feel better. What was your standard regime before that?
Yeah,
your recovery regime, like what are the other things, like ice baths and 5,000 grams of ibuprofen? Is that basically it? And
yeah, you know, it would be
and not steroids, cortisone injections.
I know what you mean. Yeah, certainly not steroids, but
not steroids. Sorry, cortisone.
No, yeah. Listen, it would be you know, for us as professional athletes, we're lucky enough to have kind of physios that are on hand. You know, we're getting like physio, especially when you're injured, you know, 3 or 4 times a day, and then couple that with you know, your strength and conditioning programs that obviously change when you're injured, and then like you said, you got your ice bars, you got your recovery skins, you got your
what is that? So sorry, I have no idea.
Sorry, recovery skins. So they're like compression skins. So basically, you put them on after a session, and they help you recover. I haven't researched the science behind it, but you know, very much as rugby players is whatever you're told to do, you do. We're pretty much robots in that respect, which is pretty much why, you know, when we went outside of the norm, you know, that's when that's how we found this and sort of got stuck into it. But yeah, you know, I think like recovery processes, they're being researched every day. There's new stuff coming on all the time, and I guess our hope is that one day CBD is seen as kind of one of those processes that's kind of added into that whole regime. And I think if you look over in North America, obviously it's a little bit different from a legal standpoint. You know, there's certain states that where recreational cannabis is legal, and you know, as if you look at the NFL, for example, you know, they now don't test for cannabis, so the athletes, they can not just take CBD, you know, without any worry at all. They can you know, use recreational cannabis, which a lot of people over there do use for recovery, and that's pushed into the NBA, the Major League Baseball. And that's certainly kind of what we would not the recreational side, but in terms of from a legal standpoint within sports in the UK, just kind of looking at how it's structured, and you know, I guess WADA, which is the World Anti-Doping Association, just kind of rewording like what they've put in terms of cannabinoids and you know, whether they would fail a test or what levels will let you fail a test, because like that's where it all starts. And then if they can change that, then it'll filter down. You know, nutritionists, like studies are they're ongoing, and there are more coming to light all the time in terms of how they can help recovery. So I think nutritionists will see it as a very valuable product to kind of help players and athletes sort of stay at their peak.
Now, so like being a professional rugby player, as you said, you've been hurt a lot. I assume the the leagues, they have like standard processes for pain management. So I mean, like not the recovery, but the actual like dealing with a player's pain. Now you hear stories about American football of basically stories of players basically being ushered off at half time, cortisone injections to the knee, cortisone injections to the shoulder, like a whole bunch of other stuff, and they're basically sent out onto the field, dosed up on Novocaine or something like that. You know what I mean? So they're basically numb but still playing. Does that happen in the UK? As in, our rugby players almost...
That's brutal.
It's brutal. It's messed up. But I was just curious. I was curious if that actually happens to players in the UK, if they actually are not forced to play injured, but encouraged to play injured, or they're just kind of patched up and sent back out again. And has like the recovery period you've seen from CBD changed your mentality a little bit from what you've kind of been through? So they said you're like, over your career, like the processes which you saw as normal, do you now look at them and think, this is ridiculous, I can't believe they put me through that? Or do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, definitely. And I guess first of all, the processes, they've definitely changed. I think everyone, the doctors, the sports doctors in the UK, they're brilliant. And I wouldn't say it's as extreme as America in terms of like, I've heard those stories as well. Of kind of those injections to get you out
like
on the
Varsity
pitch.
Blues. Remember the movie Varsity Blues with what's his name, the Fast and the Furious guy, God rest his soul. But he's basically in the back, and they're giving him. He's a quarterback, and they're giving him injections like it's high school football, and he's going back out there. It's like insane. So sorry for interrupting.
No, but like first of all, like you'd be hard pushed in rugby in particular to find anyone that is 100% fit, pain free. So there's always kind of when you get to match day in particular, there's always a need for something to get you feeling 100% to get on the pitch. And I'm not talking like, go be careful what I say, but like no one's ever pushed so far that it is a danger. But there's obviously like methods and methods that are safe and would include maybe painkillers, whatever type of painkillers that might be, to just to get you over that hump and get you out and feeling like you can go out and perform to the best of your ability. But yeah, I would say that there has been risks in the past, but I think recently, like for example, like in America, the opioid crisis is pretty horrendous, right? And there's definitely a crossover into sport with that, and I think I don't know if it starts off the top of my head at all.
Can I leap in for a second?
Yeah, go for it.
I'm so sorry. There's a saying that when America sneezes, Britain catches a cold.
Yeah.
And we always say, oh, well, that'll never come here. And inevitably, with a sort of horrible fatal attitude, it does come here. So far, thank heavens, we have avoided, in many respects, the opioid crisis. It is so huge in America. It cannot be overstated. If you want to see a wonderful film, it's a short film. It's called Father and Son. It stars a dear friend of mine called Jim Meskimen, and it sums up the opioid crisis quite brilliantly. So I just didn't want to gloss over that, because it's something one day we'll look at it in depth here on the show. But please God, it doesn't come.
Yeah,
because it's
actually. So I saw a great stat and about the states that have legalized recreational cannabis in America, that the number of prescriptions for painkillers is down 25%.
Wow.
Which is an amazing start, right? So but in terms of sport over here, like obviously, like the goal for me would again, aside from using it as just like a daily routine, CBD would be like hopefully to be like get players like that sold on CBD that they can use it aside from those other things.
I have a question for you. So rugby is an international sport. Unfortunately, the laws governing CBD are also, they change internationally. I know the World Anti-Doping Agency has said that, cannabinoids, like including CBD, they are legal for consumption. However, the law of the land supersedes the World Doping Agency law. So, for example, if you're playing in Qatar, okay, where they have strict anti-cannabis laws, or you're playing in Saudi Arabia, let's just say hypothetically, where there's strict anti-cannabis laws and anti-CBD laws, what does that mean? Does that mean a player is allowed to have it in their system because they come from a UK ground? Does that mean that you've been taking CBD and you could get in trouble for that? If you, let's say you go and play your Rugby World Cup, hypothetically, and one of the players has consumed CBD, if they're in a territory which doesn't allow it, like what are the governing laws? How do players protect themselves, sir?
It's a very good question, Ollie, and one that I don't have the answer.
I'll be honest with you, I've literally just written this down as we're talking. It wasn't one of the ones which I actually had planned. I'm just sitting here thinking, well, in the UK we're allowed, and in America we're allowed. Fine, they don't play rugby in America. Fine, we don't play football here. But let's say if you wanted to do a little bit of a chaos game, you do an American football team versus the rugby game. Let's see what happens. But basically, I was just curious as to what happens in the bigger picture, because we've started doing business with South Africa recently. We've started supplying products to South Africa. Very, very, very pro topical application. Edible consumption is very frowned upon. Very, very frowned upon. You're not allowed to orally consume cannabinoids because it falls under the medical consumption. Therefore, you're not allowed to do it. What happens, let's say, when a whole bunch of English boys go to South Africa to play rugby? The English boys have been able to use CBD, so their recovery is better. Their bodies are generally operating at high functionality. They've healed better. The South Africans aren't. Does that mean that maybe a player is having an unfair advantage over another player? Do you understand that there's definitely a conversation there?
Good point, Ollie.
I totally understand. And I guess that crosses over into like a whole host of kind of prescription drugs, doesn't it? Because like some would be legal in the UK. And I guess like an easy example is there's probably a whole host of prescription drugs that are legal in America that aren't legal in the UK, right? So I guess that example can be used across a whole host of drugs or prescription drugs in particular. But yeah, no, it's a good question, and I don't have the answer, I'm afraid.
Oh, listen, if you find out the answer, you can come back on the show and tell us.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Definitely. I'll do some research after this.
So I want to ask a question. You said something before. You talk about isolates. So you talk about how it's all about finding a high quality isolate, and it's actually CBD is a compound, isolated CBD, which helps you with your recovery.
Yeah.
Okay. I love that because I am like Mr. Isolate, and if you ask Ross over the last 45 weeks, all we've had is basically people tell me that I'm mental and that
No, they haven't. No. Let's be careful.
Everyone's so pro broad spectrum, and it's a constant argument which I have like all the time. I had it last week. Last week it kicked off like crazy, and I was just like, I left last week's show sweating a little bit. Like, come on, Mary, why did you make me do that? Why did you make me do that? But yeah,
it was the only. I got to tell you something, Dom. It was the only time I've seen Ollie Mammon on the back foot ever in 47 shows.
I was literally
he got a smacking. He got, and because it's technical stuff, Dom, I couldn't, because I'm like a passenger here. I want to learn along with all our listeners and viewers around the world. That's my role. And so I had to stay on the side, on the touchline in your case, and Ollie was getting a right on the face.
I was right in the middle of the scrum. And it was always like, it's almost like she was 23 people around me just trying to crush me to death. It was super mental. But that she was logical, and I think I held my own. I held my own.
No. Let's not get into that. You did, but what was interesting for me as a complete non-expert was the passion. The passion behind it. The same the passion on both sides, because it's something that both you and she totally believed in, as indeed does Dom. And that's what's so amazing about all the guests that Ollie finds. And every single one has been fabulous. I mean, seriously amazing, extraordinary, is their passion, their depth of knowledge. And the fact that they're in the vanguard of this, as you, of all people, Dom, are right in the front. You're like the vanguard of the vanguard, if you like, in your field.
No, because you've also, you come from a position where theoretically, your image has something to lose. Do you know what I mean? The rest of us, we're speaking from our hearts, but we mean nothing to anyone out there. Like I said, I've got a message from my buddy Alan saying, "How did you get Dominic Day on your show?" And I was like, messaged him, asked if he wanted to be on the show. That's basically it. People love you, man. Like, you've got a whole bunch of Saracens fans in Northwest London. They all know you. They all used to come down to Copthall and watch you.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
I mean, like, it's local. And when you guys were over in Twickenham, I've got buddies who had season tickets for there as well. I mean, also used to travel from North London all the way over to Twickenham and go watch you guys play. So, I mean, like, you've got like, people have been watching you for a long time. So, just saying, I'm very lucky to have you here once again. So what I was going to say, so the first product you ever used was an isolate product.
And this is an interesting story, just because I'm not a vapor and I'm not a smoker, but this is kind of how CBD really got ingrained in my mind. So we had this conversation, myself and George, when we were on the physio beds, about CBD, and it was like, do we, don't we, do we, don't we? Yeah. And then I was on my crutches, obviously, being post-op, and crutching my way down the street, and I was going past a vape shop, and I just saw CBD in a window, and I was just like, oh, listen, why not? Let's give it a go. So I went in, I bought a little vape pen, I bought some CBD, and that was kind of my first experience of it. So I assume it was an isolate. I wouldn't be able to tell you because it was so long ago and sort of right at the start. But I assume being in a vaporable form, it was probably an isolate. So yeah, that would have been my first sort of experience. So it was quite strange, really, like sat on the sofa at night, sort of vaping away. No idea how much was getting in my system. Like at that time, didn't know really
what
like
a milligram was.
Yeah, or like,
no one did. No one understood anything.
Didn't know like how many cannabinoids there were. Didn't really know anything about it at that time. And obviously, like I mentioned, that experience that I had, that was really when I did a deep dive and really started to sort of educate myself on not just sort of the hemp plant, but all the different cannabinoids and like the industry as a whole. So yeah, that's how it all started for me. So a bit of a strange one. I quickly switched and onto oils shortly after that.
And the oils you were taking were always isolates?
No, it would have been broad spectrum, but simply that was kind of a knowledge gap for me, thinking, which and this is why I mentioned like other brands who advertise to athletes, thinking, oh, okay, a broad spectrum won't have THC in it, but it would have had like other cannabinoids, but quickly kind of learning then again, and switching to an isolate product after that. So yeah, because sort of been through it all really in terms of the products I've used.
Amazing. But right now, let's say 4-5 CBD are fully isolate-based products, right?
Yeah.
And they're completely safe for consumption for athletes, because there are no trace elements of THC which could get them in trouble, no trace elements of other cannabinoids, and it's a tried and tested product which has been designed around athletes and the laws which kind of surround them, right?
Yeah. So what?
It's a great advertisement. You should use that. Should use that little clip as your advertisement.
I'm just going to write that one down now.
That's it. Or just take a clip of this video. Just use my face. It's all good. Oliver Mammon from Taylor Mammon promotes 4-5 CBD.
So we go. We have a specific range. We have a specific range for athletes. And again, I hate to keep sort of going on what kind of other people do, because I love that, like, it raises a profile of CBD in sport, but it just has to be done in the right way. Like, you can make a product, but what a lot of people don't realize, first of all, there's a whole cannabinoid thing, and you're only allowed CBD. Second of all, is that any like nutritional product, food supplement, whatever it is that an athlete takes, it needs to be tested for banned substances, and not just. So in this case, in the case of CBD, it needs to be tested for other cannabinoids, but also for cross contamination during the manufacturing process. So, for example, you could get someone having a perfectly good isolate, making it in a facility that isn't good, and having some cross contamination there. They might be making a THC product, for example. I know they probably wouldn't have, but just use that as an example. Prior to that, and then there's some cross contamination of that THC into that CBD product. So every batch that we use a company called BSCG. They're based in Los Angeles. They're called the Banned Substance Control Group, is what that stands for. So every batch that we make of some of our SKUs, we send it to LA to be tested. They test down to a really low level to ensure, first of all, there's no other cannabinoids, but secondly that there's no cross contamination. And then once we get that certified,
there's no transition from the cannabinoids, because that's the nature of cannabinoids is they change. Everything starts life on the plant as CBGA, and then it changes into CBG, changes into CBD, into THC, THCV, THCA, back into fucking CBN, and all over the place. They're always changing with light and heat and pressure and time, and other ingredients can force cannabinoids to transition. So I understand it's tricky. It's not like you get your constant and you're there forever. You leave a pot of CBD on a temperature like for 15 hours at 114 degrees. Some of it will turn to CBN. It just happens. It's like a natural conversion, or CBDV. It can happen.
Yeah. So
I understand.
So essentially, we're trying to negate that risk as much as possible by that's just kind of an extra layer that we do, particularly, and again, like a lot of our customers, obviously we have a lot of athletes. Professional athletes wouldn't be like our primary customer. We get a whole host of people using our products, but I guess that's the byproduct of them being like, if athletes are comfortable using it, then like that must be a good product, which is great for us, obviously, as a business. But then, there's also, you get people in the forces get drug tested, nurses get drug tested,
doctors,
and they're all people that
bus drivers.
So they would be big customers of ours. People from like the forces. Teachers. Yeah. So
actually, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people out there. It's actually very smart. You're the only brand. You're the only brand, the only company I've ever spoken to who goes as far as to send product to a company in California to test for other banned substances which might not actually exist.
Yes, so I mean, it's very reassuring. I was just listening in awe to that, Dom, because it's incredibly reassuring. You go to that, that extra mile.
I'm going to steal that, don't you? I'm going to start doing that. I'm going to add that into my catalogue.
I'm just letting you know that.
I'm really sorry, but I'm stealing that. And that is our value right there. You just made a man better. I appreciate the consultants.
Can I ask a really daft question? Because people around the world watching and listening might be thinking, why is there a reason? And I'm not being sorry. It's a genuine question. It's not a gag. Is there any particular reason that Ollie isn't supplying your company, or is this completely like saying, why is a Blancmange company not supplying Volkswagen? I mean, in other words, it's not apples and apples. Have I got it wrong?
We've had conversations in the past, haven't we, Ollie? I think it's, and this is, we are sometimes
really awkward for us. This is really
no. I'm sorry. No, I'm just very. I tell you why I'm asking. Let me tell you why. No, hang on. Guys. Let me tell you why I'm asking. And there's no subtext to this. I know it's cracked Ollie up. There's no subtext because my role here is just everyman. I'm just like a pipeline of trying to ask the questions that people would like to ask.
Yeah.
So it seems like I'm just wondering if I'm not comparing apples and apples, or simply Ollie isn't a supplier and you go to one of Ollie's rivals. I mean, that's absolutely fine. I don't know the ins and outs of the business.
And it's a very simple answer, and this is sometimes to our detriment from a bottom line perspective. But we're just quite loyal people, and it takes a lot for us to. Our current supplier, manufacturer, good people, bent over backwards, and we just feel like a certain amount of loyalty to them, and that's
I
simply
respect
it.
that. I wouldn't want to poach you.
I mean, that adds to
what
the
you was
integrity.
implying.
That adds to the integrity of 4-5. No good
I
for
just
Ollie,
like the fact.
obviously.
I
He's
like
sulking.
the fact they've had one manufacturer from the start. I like the fact that, like you've heard me speak about this so many times, Russ. I don't really care where you buy your CBD product from, as long as it's the right product for you.
That's true.
You know, like,
That's
and you're
true.
always like, why do you say this? Because I know what my space is in this world. You know, like, I know that me and Dom don't do business, but I know we have the utmost respect for each other. And that's one thing. It's just about it's about almost. Sometimes it's not about doing business with people, but it's about having a good business relationship with them. And it's part of our integrity as Taylor Mammon is we don't want to change something that's not broken. You know, we don't want to come in and fix something that's working fine. It's just not. It's not what we do. And like I said from the beginning, I wouldn't be singing Dom's praises, and I wouldn't have Dom on the show if I didn't believe what I'm saying. So, as someone who doesn't manufacture his product, why would I want to change it? I mean, like, also the integrity. Why would you want to start messing with that? Do you know what I mean? From my perspective. You know, if Dom was to turn around and say, "Look, my supply is screwing me over,"
that makes perfect sense. I mean, that makes. I just wondered if there was a technical reason or what. You know, you need widgets and his producing brackets. I don't know.
I'm sure you'll agree. In terms of like, it's a small industry, right? Everyone knows everyone, really. When it comes down to the nuts and bolts of it, and we've always found that building good relationships has worked really well for us in the long term. But listen, you never know what might happen in the future, Ollie.
Don't even say we're live on radio. I'm going to get a letter of complaint on my.
But you know what, Dom? There's an organisation that I've interviewed and I've had very fascinating conversations with them. They're extraordinary bunch. It's called BIP. Business is personal. And you have to jump through hoops. I'm not a member of it, but you have to jump through hoops to be approved. Because like you two, it's about integrity. And the whole structure of BIP, which is basically everything that you've been saying, is business is personal.
I hate when
it's no
people
good
say
saying
it's not personal.
No, that's a different thing. I always think when someone says, "Oh, Ollie, it's not personal, it's just business," and they've completely screwed you into the ground. It's not about business is personal because you want to deal with somebody. You can't always, but you want to deal with someone who, what both of you have, I'm not blowing smoke up your posteriors, have integrity, have started companies with an intention and have stuck true to their vision, as opposed to, just diffusing the line into just anything that'll make a few bob. That's what that's about. And I think it's a very important point that Dom raised. It's a universal point. Loyalty to your supplier. Totally understand that, respect that.
So now you're not a player anymore, and now you're no longer legally constrained to the laws of the league. Would you go and get yourself a legal cannabis prescription in the UK?
It's a very good question, and
I know it is. It's a great question.
It's a very good question.
You're so modest.
I'm awesome with questions today. It's like literally on top of the world.
Absolutely, something that has crossed my mind, and I would consider it. Yeah, definitely. Sorry, did you say why?
No, I said fine, but also why is also like why is a great question. Expand. Why?
Well, just because I'm intrigued about the plant as a whole, and every kind of aspect of it, and what would medicinal cannabis, for example, help me even more? Like that is something that
1,000,000%. Especially if you're taking other painkillers and stuff like that, 1,000,000%. And it's only I'm just listening. I was listening to you talk about your American counterparts playing the padded up version of your game, and basically they do consume cannabis. A lot of them, if they get caught consuming cannabis, they'll get in trouble, but they don't get tested for it. So the whole idea is if you're driving a car and you're smoking a joint and the policeman pulls you over, you're going to get fined. You're going to get in trouble. But if you're consuming within the private of your own doors, we're not going to try and catch you. I think that's what's happening in America at the moment, especially in the NBA and baseball. NFL's being a bit more tricky, but they're warming up to the idea. And I just thought, with you talking about how they have access to full spectrum cannabinoids and whole plant products, I was wondering, you in the UK, you actually have access to whole plant product, you have access to a full spectrum cannabinoid, and you are under the list of criteria. You have, I assume, nerve damage in your knee, which will enable you to kind of push forward and get it. I also assume you probably have arthritis after all the years of playing. Most rugby players do, in their hands, in their necks, in their shoulders. Most people are unfortunately riddled with it. And I just thought it should be something which you should look into. I'm actually looking into getting a cannabis license for my Tourette syndrome. But if it's something you want to talk about, potentially make a documentary around it, I think we could have a hell of a lot of fun, and it'll bring a much needed education to this industry that, if it's good enough for Dominic Day, maybe it's good enough for the rest of us. And it kind of helps, promote, a bit more acceptance of it around the community. It could be the next step in your journey to becoming the cannabis advocate that you are.
Mm. That's a very good point. And it is something that's crossed my mind. Nothing I've really delved into too deeply. But maybe we should get that documentary made, mate.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So, as an athlete, how would you see the value of education in helping sporting organizations, leagues, other athletes in understanding the value of CBD and other cannabinoids? Is there anything that you do to push this knowledge further amongst your community?
Yeah, first of all, I think education is the key to the whole thing, particularly, like I said, athletes are very much like robots. So once you can get hold of the doctors and the nutritionists and educate them, then I think that will help to kind of unlock the whole space. As to what we're doing right now, we are in constant comms. We're talking to a number of professional teams for 4-5 as a whole. We've got a couple of branches to our business. Obviously, CBD is our core business and is what we're all built on. But we've kind of branched out into vitamins with a similar mindset, being that having looked at a lot of the vitamins that are on.
And Dominic, are those straightforward, vitamins like I would buy?
Yeah, exactly. Straight vitamins that are non-CBD. But I think the issue, and this has really struck us when we looked at the vitamins we've been taking our whole career. Like when you look at a lot of vitamins that are on the shelf, the quality is quite shocking. Like what's in the products, how effective they are, how much your body actually absorbs, is really quite shocking. And I think some people would look at some CBD products in the same way, and probably have done in the last couple of years, and that's something that we've kind of strived to try and put right with our products, and exactly what we've done with the CBD side of things. So we are talking to a number of clubs and entering a number of professional sports clubs with our vitamin range, whilst during that process fully planning on educating them with the benefits of CBD. But like I said, none of them will properly touch it. They might recommend our products if they know their athletes are taking them, but they won't really touch it from a partnership point of view until the WADA have kind of cleared up their stance on it.
I understand that.
It's very interesting, even from my perspective. Before I do any vitamins, I take a lot for a variety of reasons. I always speak to my pharmacist first. I get pharmaceutical advice, and don't just buy any old thing that I happen to see, because there is a vast difference, isn't there, in the quality and the effectiveness between the various brands. I think it's a very valid point.
After building, this is one thing that's happened. After being someone who builds products, after spending the last 5 years building products. You know, it gets to the point where when I look at a product, I know exactly if it's built right or if it's built wrong. You can just see like what fillers are used and what additives are used. And basically you've got a pill like this, which looks like it's got, you know, like 700 milligrams of different like active ingredients, but actually it's got 7. And then you actually figure out that actually now out of the 7 milligrams of active ingredients, maybe 1 will get absorbed. It's got 15% bioavailability. And you're just looking at this, you're like the Barocca equivalents. And you're like, oh, it's a new Barocca. But it's actually, you look at it and it's basically just sugars and bicarbonate, which does something for you. So it's all about understanding deeper and deeper and deeper. So we made a product here recently. It's got like literally every B in it, every D in it, every A in it. And I mean, every vitamin. It's got so much in there. And the amount of vitamins you actually have to use are so negligible. So it makes sense as to why they fluff things up. But then when you think about the fact that you can actually buy concentrated vitamins for literally next to nothing, when you've got to take maybe a toothpick worth, and that is your actual total vitamin allowance for the day. But you're never going to get that toothpick worth in the capsule because the capsule's only got 1/10 of a toothpick. And that's what makes you start to think that there's something not right out there. You know, there's something wrong with the way a product's made. And, you know, fine, it's got all the B vitamins you need, but it hasn't got the right amount of them. You know, it's like saying to someone, that well has all the water you're going to need, but there's no bucket to get down to the bottom of the well. So sure, it's got all the water you need, but you can't get to it. Your body can't get to it. You can't get what you need from it.
Nicely put.
And it's very often with a lot of these products, it's one of the biggest arguments we have with customers. Like, do you want it to say it does something, or do you want it to do something? Because they're two very different things. For it to do something, it's going to cost you a shitload of money. For you to say it does something, it's going to be cheap. What do you want? You know, because very often what people want to do is they want to make the claim without actually having the punch. And I think it's kind of, like I said, impressive that Dominic's kind of stayed loyal to his true north. You know, he stayed loyal to his true north, and he stayed loyal to his supplier, which therefore means his supplier only wants to take care of him, and his expansion into other products, which he realizes are lacking on the market. I'm in awe of him. I think he's very smart because he's also a voice people will listen to, and he's someone who's gone through the system. He knows the system's flawed, and he's trying to make it better for other DOMs who are going through it tomorrow. I think it's the right way. I think he's doing right. I think he's doing like a hella right.
I think he likes you, Dom. Again, I'm going out on a limb.
It's good to hear. I like, obviously, it's the hard way to do it, which is, you know, sometimes it's like hitting your head against the wall, because it's like when you're trying to do something right and give people like the best product at like an affordable price, and then you obviously see some companies. The thing and this is what really kind of swung it for us when we used a number of nutritionists to like break down like all the top products on the market, and it was the fact that there was chalk used as a filler.
Chalk?
Yeah, and I was like, what kind of chalk are we talking about here? And literally, the chalk that they're talking about is like the chalk you find in the White Cliffs of Dover, the chalk you'd use on a whiteboard. And I was like, that is really not right. Like to me, that's not right. It's no nutritional value. There's nothing to your body. And you know, that's kind of really when we were like, right, let's sit down, let's look at like what we use, let's get a base range together, and let's just go for it and see if we can make a change. Really.
Hell yeah.
That's
awesome.
Shocking. I had no idea. That's absolutely shocking.
But it's also incredible that he noticed. And it's incredible that he's training himself to kind of realize that most products out there are made terribly. And the sad truth is most people out there don't see it.
I'm not sure you can say most products. Some products.
A lot.
Okay. I have to bow to your superior.
The majority of.
Okay. I bow to your superior knowledge. But a lot of products are made with integrity. So I think we just want to add that. Dominic, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the ABC of CBD here on Men's Radio. Really, really appreciate it. You are someone who not just talks the talk, but you walk the walk, as we used to say in New York, and it's absolutely true. I think I speak on Ollie, if I may, on his behalf. Thank you for everything you do. Hope the work all goes well. Stay safe. We will be back same time next week with the ABC of CBD. Until then, take care, stay safe.